Austin.
Yes.
It's Shane and Austin for the 40K Fanatics podcast. We were a three-man show for 2 episodes.
That was good.
And then there were 2 again.
Can't believe it.
Casey has got some stuff going on, and he is lost in the warp for the foreseeable future, but he could return at any time.
He's good.
But we're going to persevere because there's a lot of Warhammer news going on.
There sure is.
And let's be honest. Casey, out of the 3 of us, biggest Warhammer fan.
Yeah. 40K specifically.
Yeah, 40K. I'm definitely second. You're a distant third on 40K fanaticism. Mm-hmm. However, I think we've got a lot of good discussions to be had about the hobby at large, and you always bring everything back to 40K. These people out on the YouTube, out on the Twitter, out on these places that are like, they do this thing where they want to strike games on Games Workshop because the prices are too high and all this, that, and the other. You are fooling yourselves. It's the biggest game in town for a reason, because it is quite good, and no matter what we talk about in the miniaturing hobby, it all comes back to 40K because they are the Big Mac and fries of this entire thing.
It's the king.
It's the king, baby. And, you come for the king, you don't miss.
No.
And, but 40K misses sometimes, or does it? We're about to find out, because today in our main topic, we're going to talk about they're legending all of my stuff.
It's all gone. Burn your models.
Light them on fire. They have no value whatsoever if they cannot be played in the game. But first, oh no, who's going to do the Bitsbox sound effect? We're opening the Bitsbox where we talk about what we've done in the miniature hobby, in 40K, in whatever it is we're working on in the past week. Get in the comments and get at 40K Fanatics on X and show us what you've done. We'll have Whip Wednesday posts, and we'll have the same things repeated in the YouTube video if you check this out on YouTube. Don't forget, we're on Spotify and everywhere else. Be sure to comment, give us 5 stars, and subscribe, and tell all your friends and your grandma. It's almost Christmas.
Oh, yeah.
Sanguinoris, is that what they call it?
I believe so.
Yeah. Where the angelic savior gave his life to protect the God King. Mm-hmm. It's almost like they might have lifted that from something.
If only we had someone here to give us a lore spill on that.
I feel like I'm getting better. I think maybe what we'll end up with is this nice little spot where I say something close, and then the homie Craig gets in the comments and straightens us out.
Yeah,
that may be his job. He may be the unofficial 3rd member for a while. Craig, we're looking to you for some guidance and some education on this lore down in the comments. And if anybody wants to help Craig out or tell him how wrong he is, I don't know how the homie Craig would take that. So
probably pretty chill. Good
luck to you. Maybe not though, which would be funny to me.
Yeah.
Speaking of, and when this comes out, we're recording on a Tuesday, which is fairly early in the week. Now, you're going to hear this Friday. I swear I'm going to get to the Bitsbox. There's going to be a big Warhammer World Championship announcement on the day possibly that you listen to this. We're going to be back with an emergency podcast to cover some of that stuff. So don't worry, but you're not going to get it here. So don't skip this episode, because there's going to be good stuff to talk about. Mm-hmm. And some of it may tie in with the various reveals and things that are supposed to be coming up.
Yeah, they're doing a 40K, Sigmar, Old World, Horus Heresy, I think a few other things. That's
going to be exciting. I want to see the new 40K stuff. I can't even imagine what it could be.
They're probably going to show off the Guard and is it Eldar that are next?
Oh, I forgot Eldar are coming.
So Eldar were such a big part of the meta that I forgot their Codex never even came out.
You know what else, too, about that? I mean, we are way not anywhere near the Bitsbox at this stage. Close the Bitsbox real fast.
All right.
Okay. Bitsbox closed. We're going to open it in a minute. It's a funny thing with the Eldar, because their whole reading the fates thing, I feel, is so well, air quotes, well realized in their one detachment that I don't really know what their detachments could look like, because it is at once a really good representation of the fluff of the idea to see the future, to be able to decide what your die roll is going to be, which is what their rule is. Mm-hmm. It is also hugely problematic that you can periodically opt out of the hit, wound, save, damage funnel at any stage. So with Eldar, I don't see, like, if you had a detachment that tried to buff some type of unit, then, and while maintaining the army rule of the Strands of Fate or the Fate dice, then I don't understand how you could, like, they're already so good.
Well, you could do Harlequins. Harlequins could get their own detachment. You can run mono Harlequins.
So the Eldar Codex is going to be a magazine. It's going to be a zine.
Well, that's the way it is right now, isn't it? Harlequins are part of Eldar.
Yeah, they are.
In the craft world.
But what I'm saying is they got to sell a book.
Yeah.
And what's going to be in the book? Because I don't see it.
Okay. You have your basic Eldar army that you have right now. You have Harlequins, and then you go for a Wraith build that's mostly the Wraith units, and I forget what the craft world is, was the yellow and blue one. They're based around having a lot of Wraith units.
Yeah, but my point is, if you want to do that right now, the army rule on its own is so good that you can just do that.
I don't know.
If you want to do Harlequins right now, you can just do that, because the fact that you can opt out of having to make a hit roll, or having to make a wound roll, or having to make a save is a big damn deal. But that will be a really fun conversation for when the Eldar book comes out, and you're probably right, that is probably what they're going to do. But what did we do in the hobby today? Open the bits box. What did I do this week? I haven't done much because we've had a short week. Mm-hmm. But I did get my airbrush out, and man, let me tell you something, Austin. First of all, we got to get you an airbrush. It has to happen.
I don't know.
It is a tool in the box that you can use whether you mean to or not. But I've been really leaning on it, and I got in doing another one of those Night Lord dudes out of the Kilting box. Mm-hmm. Periodically, I just want something to paint, and I built up this guy, and he's the one that has the effigy of the dude. He's like crucified on this chaos stick, and so he's going to be really fun. I'm going to do him like a purple fleshy color, and then the dude is a Night Lord with the lightning and all that. And so I got my airbrush out, and my point in telling you all this is that the airbrush medium in the bottle, I'm using the Army Painter one, but you can get, whatever brand you want. I'm putting like 5 drops of that into my airbrush, and then I'm putting the paint, something like 10 to 15 drops of paint, which is a little bit less paint than I had used before. And then I just plug the end and run it so that it bubbles and mixes. I can't be bothered to pour the stuff into another vessel. That would be a lot of trouble. And man, it sprays so good, so thin, so smooth. You just touch it, and the little bit of paint comes out, and it comes out so transparent. And then if you think, well, I don't want it that transparent, you just hit it again, because it's almost dry on contact, I swear. Yeah. You can just build up and build up and build up. And you can, if you're not careful, you get the spider webbing and all that. I haven't had those problems because I've been being careful. But, I mean, I laid out basically color gradients all over the thing, prime black, painted white, or then put white on him. And the idea is that he's going to fade from, Night Lord blue to black all over.
Yeah.
And so I'm strategically hitting the shoulder pads. I'm hitting the sides of his forearms and the tops of his legs, but a little bit on the side, so that he's kind of got like a few, as you turn him, sort of money angles, right? Mm-hmm. Like it's not necessarily like a proper lighting scheme thing, but if you hold him from the back, you get something to look at. If you hold him from the front, the sides, and then I got the ink, and I even went ahead and put the 5 drops of airbrush medium into the acrylic ink and mixed that up, and then you got ink spraying extra smooth and extra thin.
Oh, wow.
As if inks aren't enough. Man, it turned out good. Then I did the same thing, but this time with red paint for the third of the Night Sisters from the Shatterpoint box of the Dathmiri Night Sisters, Mm-hmm. I don't think you've watched Clone Wars.
Not since I was a kid.
You're missing out. It's really good. And so she's all done in various gradients of red, and the color scheme on them, because they were the test model for my Cornlord skulls, which gets an oil wash. So she'll be oil washed and then cleaned up all over her sort of white ghosty skin. But that's all I've done so far. I've got other stuff on the list. Vashtor is coming soon, because what I'm doing right now is I'm doing a little bit of learning. We're going real hard.
Oh, yeah.
On the Archifane.
Oh, yeah.
What about you?
Well, like you said, it's been kind of a short week, so I haven't really gotten too much, just kind of knocking away at the dwarves a little bit. I think this weekend I might have a game with Craig for Old World.
You're going to play Craig in Old World? I'm playing Craig at his house tomorrow. We may, weather permitting. If you missed our podcast last week, we were talking about best and worst times playing 40K, and it was really lovely. Craig, the homie Craig, got mine number 1 for playing outside and catching the odd sprinkle. Now, we don't want to play in the rain on purpose. We're not saying that you should play in the rain on purpose, but it was nice on that one particular day, and it's supposed to be nice tomorrow, I think. So we may play in the sunshine, and it'll be a 40K game. I did tell him to look through his, I think he keeps the White Dwarf subscription, and I said, go through and see if there's a neat mission that we can run, because I think I'm the only one in town that'll play non-match play 40K with anyone.
Most likely.
Which is silly. They're toys. Play with your toys, folks. Mm-hmm. It won't hurt. Sometimes you can play golf from the forward tees. No one's going to laugh at you.
Yeah. But I'm looking forward to trying out his Tomb Kings, going up against those. I haven't decided if I'm taking dwarves or goblins. Probably goblins, because they're all ready to go.
You're going to be fully painted by then.
Well, I don't know about that, but they'll be... They'll be fully ready to hit the table in a demo game.
I like it. Now, has Craig ever played Old World?
I don't think he has. He bought, I believe, his army recently from one of the players that have been dropping out. I don't know why everyone keeps it dropping out. Just play the game.
It's a good game. Have you released the bootstrap comment yet into the YouTube?
I think it's coming out tomorrow.
Yeah. Sometimes, as Austin said, you have to bootstrap your own game. You gotta bring the whole game over to your buddy and say, "Hey, we're gonna play insert game," and they may enjoy it. Mm-hmm. And next thing you know, you show up again, and they're like, "Hey, I got some stuff you don't got."
Yeah, and even run demo games at game stores. Just show up, say, "Who wants to play this game? I've got both sides of the full game. You can try it out. No investment needed."
Yeah, I mean, it's tough, right? We at once talk about how expensive 40K is, and that gets a lot of press, and I think that's because, my thing is this. I know a lot of people who are into motorcycles and cars and boats. Mm-hmm. Do you know how damn cheap this hobby is compared to motorcycles, cars, and boats?
Exceptionally.
I mean, those guys wouldn't even think about, man, it's deer hunting season. I don't know where some of you are in the world, but here in the south of the USA, it is deer hunting time. And do you know how much a compound bow and a tree stand cost? And oh, wait, you need to buy 15 acres of land if you want to just have that stuff set up? Mm-hmm. Land prices are high. You know how many 40K armies you can buy for acreage? Yeah. So sometimes you got to make a little investment in your fun, and that means that if you want to play Flames of War, you got to buy a whole bunch of tanks yourself and just rock up and say, "Who wants to play tanks with me?"
Yeah.
You'll have just as much fun, and you have more stuff to paint and play with. Anyway, let's close that bits box. Get to our main topic.
Oh.
Austin, I think you've got you've done some journalism on this one.
Oh, yeah. I'm your friendly tabletop journalist.
There's no such thing as a friendly journalist.
You might be right.
Fake news. Wrong.
So, it looks like we've hit yet again a period of models being removed from the Games Workshop system of games. Slaves to Darkness is getting a Battletome release, and they are losing 4 units.
Yeah. So we're talking about things being legended because they're not losing them. They're going to get like one last set of rules, and they're going to be relegated to legends, right?
I think.
Or, I mean, I could see slaves of
This is Sigmar, by the way.
Right, Age of Sigmar. Slaves to Darkness, I could see them getting just a range refresh kind of thing, where it's like the old models are out.
They're already doing that.
Okay. So but these are like, what are they called? Battle scrolls? Is that what they are in Sigmar?
War scrolls.
War scrolls, that's it. So these are data sheets that are no longer going to be usable in quote-unquote competitive lists.
Yes. Like I said, I don't know if they're getting legend rules or not, but they are getting removed from the base game.
When they indexed the entire thing, they did legend some stuff, so I imagine that they're just doing the legend thing.
Probably.
Now,
the 4 things they are removing are the Chaos War Shrine, the Soul Grinder, which has no place being in any fantasy setting.
Fantasy setting. I have thoughts about the Soul Grinder, but go ahead.
Hold on before we go there. And then the last 2 is a double team. That's the Chaos Lord on Manticore and the Chaos Sorcerer on Manticore. So a dual kit.
Oh man, I mean, so the Manticore is gone.
It's gone from Sigmar, but like a lot of things, it has reemerged like a phoenix in Old World.
Interesting.
So it seems like they're continuing the messy divorce of shoving everything that was fantasy, old school, back into Old World and creating a big divide between both games.
How much... so you're into Old World and you're into dwarves.
Yeah.
Were there any dwarven units that you had from like your first foray into fantasy that were not brought along to this new release of Old World? Or were they all just grab them and use them?
Now, see, I started in Sigmar, but using the dwarves from fantasy because they were still an army there. And then they did a range cut in 2019 when they came out with Cities of Sigmar and gutted most of my army.
How did that make you feel?
It made me mad. Made me really mad because that was like over half my army suddenly gone from the game.
So,
and not having match play rules, which is kind of, as we know, match play is the basis of modern Warhammer.
That's true. Do you think you were upset because you were new at that point and just didn't have a lot of stuff, or were you upset on a more sort of a fundamental level?
I was upset because I didn't have my army to play. I didn't have the units. I liked the Dwarf Warriors, and they got removed. And those are my favorite models to paint and play and build. So a lot of the flavor got removed from my army. And also the investment, because at that point in my life, I had been building this up through birthday presents, Christmas, any spare money I got. So it's kind of just this collection that had grown with me over the last couple years suddenly was gutted, and Games Workshop was like, you can't play with this anymore.
Yeah, so that bit right there at the end, Games Workshop is not telling you that you can't play with this anymore.
Well, here's the thing. It's not, you can't play with this anymore. It's that we, as the game goes on, and Sigmar is a ongoing narrative lore-wise. 40K has kind of started going that way, but in Sigmar, it felt like the game's going to keep moving and growing and expanding, but we've excluded you.
Yeah. So the discussion I want to have is more about, like, broadly what Legends means to people, because I think that when things are legended, everybody's head explodes. You get those videos of people burning their models, which is absurd. Mm-hmm. Also, I got to imagine most of those videos, which I haven't actually seen one, I just assume they exist because people are always talking about them.
I can show you one later.
I'd like to see it. I bet those models are gray.
No.
Really?
Fully painted army.
That's absurd. Also, people do things for the clicks. But I'm of two minds of this, okay? In your situation, it's an unfortunate series of events. Mm-hmm. Because you had a limited amount of stuff, and it was the stuff you liked, and so for sort of your own personal taste, it's like, dang, I wish they'd gone other directions with their culling. Now, you could still take whatever book that went with those models and set up a game and play out of that book. people talk about how the FAQ for 40K is so long and it's so convoluted and da-da-da. You can take the 10th edition Leviathan rulebook out of the box and set up the models and play the game. You can do that. Mm-hmm. Are there things that don't work great? Yes. Are they going to make all the difference in the world if you and your opponent are both playing the same thing? Probably not. There is an underrepresented amount of people on discourse on the internet of people who don't ever go to a friendly local game store, don't ever play a 2,000-point game. They play whatever what it used to be called, Dawn of War or whatever, the one sort of mission, quote unquote, that was in the book, where you just bang your stuff together, and that is how they enjoy this hobby. All that still exists. And we're going to get to this when we start talking about Lord of the Rings, which is having a huge amount of culling.
Massive.
In a moment. But my point is, if you want a game to continue to develop, be balanced, and just be a general better pick-up and play experience, which is, I think, what people want broadly. People want to be able to, and this is why the match play thing is at once so handy and also so obnoxious, is that people want to go to their friendly local game store and have no idea who they're playing, but they both know we've both got 2,000 points. We're both going to play off this Pariah Nexus mission deck, and we're going to have a pretty good time because the game is constantly being whittled upon to get it into a place where you can just do that, where you can play pickup basketball, essentially. Which, don't get me started on pickup basketball, because me showing up to a pickup game is a very different thing than you showing up at a pickup game, because I am 5'6", and you are more than that.
Yeah.
Right? It's a very different experience, and yet we say that's okay. So that's another discussion for another day, but I'm looking at you, Space Marines. They have too many data sheets, and a number of them need to be legended, because what we have right now, things are being pulled away, things are being replaced, things that didn't make a lot of sense, things that are too expensive to sell, like Forge World stuff, are being relegated to Legends, where they will have rules that will be functional practically in 10th edition until 10th edition is over. Mm-hmm. So if you want to bring your Legends stuff, I, who is probably going to play a funky White Dwarf mission tomorrow, am going to say, yeah, bring them. Because that's the kind of fun I like to have. However, we've got these places where we're doing a good job, I think, of pruning this bonsai tree of an army or of a game. And then you got Ultramarines over here, which is kind of the opposite, where they just have stuff.
It's a snowball effect. Every edition, Space Marines keep picking up more and more stuff. They've tried this edition to start whittling it down, like you were saying, but there's like 30 years of just minutia, just all over it.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't play the Loyalist chapter of Space Marines. I play the other guys, where my grunt troopers work like a tactical squad still.
Yeah.
And I love them for that. They feel very customizable while also being very vanilla, and I like that. Whereas if you're an Ultramarine player and you want melta-guns, you just take whoever the guys are that all have the melta-gun, or who all have the plasma gun, or who all have the, and who all have the, and who all have the. And what happens is there are so many data sheets in that army that you end up with like a tier system where, well, these A tier units are going to be priced to the moon, and then the ones that either don't sell as well or aren't as good are going to be priced cheap as chips. And now all of a sudden we've got this weird place where Ultramarines are a horde army now.
Yeah.
And that's not what anybody intended. And the reason it's that way is because you cannot balance within one faction all this crap, and then we consider that the game of 40K has that behemoth within it and another dozen some odd factions.
I'm going to push back real quick and say that Space Marines haven't become really a horde army. It's just that they have so many options, because they still play elite, but you have so many tools in the tool chest that it's grown just massively heavy.
Yeah, and it is an example of a place where I don't think any people thinking about the holistic health of the game would mind if 1/3 of those data sheets were legended. Yeah, you would have to go buy some different stuff. But I want to go to Lord of the Rings before I get into that point.
Okay.
So Lord of the Rings is having they're getting a new edition.
Yeah, new edition coming out December or early next year.
Yeah, now
Coincide with the new movie.
New movie.
The anime film.
I mean, maybe that'll be good. The Witcher anime film on Netflix is really good. That Amazon Rings of Power is a...
I'll just say the film looks like a Fire Emblem cinematic.
I never played Fire Emblem.
I like Fire Emblem. But anyway, the range is getting cold. They have removed multiple armies, like a lot of the evil human factions they've removed to make way, I presume, for the range refresh coming with the new movie. And they removed many characters, and I think overall it's mostly anything that wasn't specifically seen on film or in the books is getting axed from the game.
Yeah, now I don't have any evidence of this, but you and I have speculated this could have to do with the sort of piecing out of the Tolkien, like, Lord of the Rings intellectual property to all these various sources. So, for instance, Amazon has got the Second Age that they're doing Rings of Power, and so they're not actually allowed to talk very much or very directly about the Third Age, which is where the Lord of the Rings movies are. Yep. We don't know what this... I mean, this new animated thing is going to be another little chunk of time, and from what we can tell... And get in the comments if you know better than us, or if you have some links to some articles that explain it better. It seems like that the Tolkien estate is like, what part do you want?
Yeah.
And somebody says, I want Third Age movies. And they're like, okay, we'll sell that to you for a couple dollars. And then they look over here and they're like, what part do you want? And they're like, can we have whatever? And it's like, well, shoot, no, we just sold exclusive rights to that part to the guy before. And it's just you know what it reminds me of?
What?
Old 40K video games.
Oh, yeah.
Where I want to make 40K Tetris, and Games Workshop is like, knock yourself out. Will it be good? No.
50 mobile games?
Yeah.
50 card games?
Yeah, and just all manner of trash because they were just like, yeah, we'll license it. It costs $25, and you can, skin your terrible game as whatever you want. Obviously, there were some good games in there. I'm just making a point.
I think Games Workshop has... I think their main license is for the Peter Jackson films. I think that's where they operate from because everything's based on that.
Well, but it seems like... So I was just recently watching... Squidmar did an interesting video about Gorka Morka, and they got to a point in sort of the history of that chunk of Games Workshop where they were going from private to publicly traded, and how when they got the license to Middle-earth strategy battles...
Strategy battle game, yeah.
Yeah. That kind of saved the company because it corresponded right with the movies coming out, the Peter Jackson movies, the first ones. And I've seen a lot of that range and models, and it appears that they have every single thing that was ever referenced in the books or the movies or anywhere in that range. It is vast.
Yeah, there's a lot of... every time the new films would come out, they would release everything for that movie. And then once the movies had come out, I believe they did sort of an expansion with it and started adding things outside of the movies.
It seemed like they had the rights to make anything that had ever even been referenced, right?
They've also made things that weren't in the books.
Yeah, which is kind of neat. It seems like what they're doing now is possible. I mean, I don't know. This may be wrong. Perhaps... they don't have free reign any longer. Maybe a new deal has been cut to be like, okay, this is the window that you can operate in. Or maybe they're doing that on purpose for the reasons that we talked about with the legending, with the culling in 40K, to try to get the game back into some sort of manageable scale. Now,
I will say that I think last year the rights were in question. They had to get them renewed. So this is possibly a fallout of that.
That could be. Now they're coming out with a new edition of the game.
Mm-hmm.
I think what we're about to see with Middle-earth Strategy Battles game is a very D&D 3.5 versus 4th edition thing. Middle-earth Strategy Battles game, at least around here, and it appears on the internet and most everywhere, is not super popular.
Oh, it's popular here.
Well, relatively speaking. You can find a game, but it's not like you can't just rock up with your Middle-earth stuff and expect someone to have it if you've not pre-prepared a game.
Because all the tables are hogged for 40K.
That too. What I'm saying, though, is the people that like it absolutely love it. They all say that it's one of the most balanced games. It's one of the smoothest playing games that Games Workshop has ever had.
It is.
And I believe them. I have not played it myself, but I believe them. And I think what we're going to have with the new edition, being that they're doing this culling, they've got a new edition, I think people are so happy with the last edition that they're probably just going to keep playing the last edition.
Maybe. I don't know.
I mean, people don't do Middle-earth tournaments. They don't travel to wherever to do these obviously, I know they exist, everyone. I know you can play them at a convention and all that. But it's not like every weekend where you can go find an RTT for 40K. It's not like that. And even if it was like that, it's only going to be 6 to 10 players. And so all 6 to 10 of them are probably going to be like, hey, you guys want to keep just playing the version that we really, really like, that is super balanced and super fun? They're all going to say, yeah, let's just do that.
I think for quite a while, the players of Middle-earth have enjoyed not having the attention of Games Workshop. They're always under the impression of, if Games Workshop doesn't look at us, we won't face any of the issues that a lot of the other games do.
And I think that mentality also feeds into what I'm talking about, right? Like, there are people possibly that pick up Middle-earth Strategy Battles game because it's a little bit, off to the side, and because there's a lot of people that complain about the constant rules adjustments and things in 40K, and they see that as a negative because they're like, well, by the time I get my stuff built, they've changed the rules. And it's like, well, yeah, because you're trying to build stuff that's busted. Stop doing that. Just go buy the army you like and things you think are cool, and you won't have these problems. But that's for another time.
I think that a lot of people, if they got into the game because of that, they assume that this would be a stable financial decision, buying up an army for this, because there hasn't been too much rocking the boat for like 20 years of the game.
Yeah, which, that feels like a little bit of a sign too, doesn't it?
And now the eye of Games Workshop, the eye of Saruman, is shining upon their game, and they are facing the wrath.
They're stressing. However, I don't know if they are stressing, because like I say, I think this is a D&D 4th edition thing, because to my knowledge, nobody on Earth played D&D 4th edition. It was kind of weird. It changed some stuff up. It kind of went for simpler when everybody was tacking on to version 3 of D&D, and you had like your open source 3.5 for 20 years or something before 5th edition came and just kicked everybody's table over because it was very good. I predict that the people that are into Middle-earth Strategy Battles game are just going to keep rocking the way they have been. And they're going to use these new models to refresh some of the old chunky models that they have if they feel like it.
Oh yeah, they got the new Rohan coming out.
Yeah. I just think that we too often, when things are legended, get in this mode of thinking that stuff has been, okay, here, let me put it in some terms that I think the younger people will understand. And I'm probably the younger people, because who I'm talking about are video game people. I think it is video game players who wished for something more tangible, but also a game, who have gotten into these miniatures games at large because they're bigger than they've ever been. They're becoming more mainstream than they've ever been. They think when a new version of the game comes out, or when something is legended, or when something is changed, that it's like Overwatch to Overwatch 2. Are you familiar with the Overwatch 2
I'm laughing.
fiasco?
It ruined the game for me.
Right, because you're like, well, what about all that crap that I bought and worked for, etc.? And they're like, yeah, that's gone now.
Yeah.
We don't do that. You're like, you mean on date, whatever day, all my effort is for naught? They're like, yes. And you're like, well, forget it then. That is not what's happening in the miniature hobby. You and I could go get some old 7th edition stuff and take the same models out of our cabinet and play a game with the books.
Yeah.
It's a book. You know what doesn't go bad? Books. You know what doesn't disappear into the internet? Plastic models, metal models, stuff on your shelf. That's the whole reason that this is not a video game. It's the whole reason why, as much as they fiddle with it to try to get the balance, it's still not balanced, because if you really wanted to balance, they would have to do that weekly. Just like Overwatch, just like League of Legends, just like all these things where Fortnite twice a week or so, every week, a couple times a month, does an update to adjust the damage output of a gun by like 0.2.
And can you imagine that kind of situation if you're a person that gets a game monthly, having to relearn all your stats in the game like every month?
Well, and some people are like, well, that's why you need a digital rule set so they can update as often as they need to. Man, no, because what's going to happen is, like, just to play the game, as we're pushing these physical models around, as we're measuring this stuff, as we're rolling these dice, what, am I just going to be referencing my phone every single time for whatever the stat line is of a legionary? No, that's ridiculous. Some of that stuff doesn't need changed.
Yeah.
And the things that they do change is, look, they could change the points every week. They could, because the app is good at that, and I don't need to know how many points are in a whatever. However, all you people that are out here trying to build your list for a tournament that you saw last week at a tournament, and you want to hit exactly 2,000 points, yeah, you'd be real mad if they kept adjusting the points 2 points this way and that way every week.
Yeah.
But you know what? The game would probably be more balanced. Okay? But you don't actually want that.
Yeah.
So when we get all up in arms about things being legended, you've got to ask yourself, am I just salty because the cool thing is no longer, or what?
I do want to say that one issue with things becoming legend is that, as I was saying before, game keeps going.
Yeah.
We could get 7th edition Warhammer stuff if we wanted to. The issue is that's not what everyone's playing. Everyone else keeps moving along to the new editions, which is its own thing. So having all your stuff getting legend is an issue with that. If you're just looking for pickup games.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that the nature of pickup games is a bit of an issue, though. And that's what I'm challenging. Like, I know I'm an old man yelling at clouds on this topic, but I think that it's stuff that is worth being said and worth being thought about, because, initial foray into Warhammer Fantasy, Austin got real upset that stuff was being legended or whatever, or Age of Sigmar, and it probably needed to be in the grand scheme of things. Obviously, you like dwarves, so you would have picked for something else to be legended rather than the dwarves, just because, you're out here repping for dwarves. They, for whatever reason, decided now the dwarves can probably go. Who knows why? There's dwarf people and elf people. I'm an elf guy. I don't care much for the dwarves. I'd probably feel similarly if they were like, yeah, no, we're not doing elves anymore. I'd be like, what?
Well, they got rid of the elves too.
Yeah, some of them, right?
Yeah.
But I just think that it's the exact same thing as all the balanced data sites. When people's units get nerfed, I mean, this is another thing. When you run this out to its sort of logical conclusion, and it's basically, I want them to change stuff for the better, but don't change anything of mine. Like, that's the brief that absolutely everyone is saying, right? They're like, yeah, no, I want the game more balanced. It's like, okay, is there anything that you want us to stay away from? You're like, yeah, all of my stuff, please. Thank you.
I want the game more balanced is sometimes code for I want everyone else nerfed.
Well, and not only that, but
I want my guys boosted.
We've got people in our local community that anytime there's a unit nerfed, they're like, unplayable. It's unplayable now. Can't even take them. It's like, well, yeah, you can take them. Watch,
But you lose.
Sometimes you lose. That's the other part. Like,
I don't want to lose.
Yeah, well, then you need to play something you're better at, or something that is a better representation of a competitive exercise.
But I paid $500 for this army. I don't want to lose.
Yeah, but you know what? You can go to a casino with $500 and see how you fare. Because here's the thing: when you win, what do you win?
Dopamine.
You don't get that whenever you roll some sixes midway through the game. Like it's a ridiculous thing. Some of us are playing these games for the wrong reasons, and if that's what you're doing, okay. But don't at the same time just stay mad all the time because they legended whatever or they nerfed whatever, because that's not the point of the thing. The point of the thing is to try to keep it some level of manageable so that we can all play it at any level. Because what would not work is if nothing was ever legended and nothing was ever called. Like at some point, we just have wholly redundant units. Like, how many different ways can you make a character do a thing before you start repeating things?
Space Marines.
Exactly. Looking at you, Space Marines. I mean, they literally have redundant characters. Like, how many captain models are there?
Too many.
And I mean,
I don't think it's captains. It's lieutenants, Primaris lieutenants.
Whatever they are. You know how many of those I got?
None.
We got a Chaos Lord.
Yeah.
That's the beginning and end of the entire promotional hierarchy. That's all the rank. You're either a Chaos Lord or you're not.
That sounds like chaos.
It does sound like chaos.
You're either a Chaos Lord or you're a Chaos Spawn.
That's it.
That's your only outcomes.
Some days you're the Lord. Some days you're the Demon Prince. I guess Demon Prince is above Chaos Lord.
The ultimate goal is to become a Demon Prince.
Yeah. And then Abaddon's over here, and he's not. And yet.
I think they've got a use for him.
Chaos is weird.
Yeah.
But I like him. Now, I do want to go back to one thing, because I said I had thoughts on it, and I do. Something being legended is the Soul Grinder.
Soul Grinder.
The Soul Grinder. What the hell is that thing?
It's a demon engine that's more demon than engine.
It is the bottom half of a Defiler with a demon body on top.
Yeah.
And I believe it sits on a giant base. The homie Craig has one. And look, I am so mad at y'all for all of this shade that you give to my Defiler. Not my Defiler, but the Defiler, okay?
In general. Everybody
want to talk about the Defiler looks so stupid. This crab walking belly gun thing with his gun arms and looking all skittery, right? And y'all got a Soul Grinder out here with the same bottom and just a top?
But he's got muscles.
It's ridiculous. It's a terrible model. It looks absolutely absurd.
Well, talk about absurdity. This model was used in Warhammer Fantasy as well. So you had this thing rocking around with like diesel parts and like exhaust billowing out, and it's fighting like knights on horses and crap.
It makes no sense. It makes no sense. The Soul Grinder was terrible. And here's my thing. You can keep your Soul Grinder if you want it, okay? Because it's legend. Bring it to the game. I don't care. I'll play it. I'll play against it. I don't mind.
It's still in 40K.
Yeah, it's still in 40K, so we're fine, right? Stop acting like my Defiler is so pants. There ain't nothing wrong with the Defiler. The Defiler would make so much more sense for that crab-walking, claw-handed base than the Soul Grinder. I just cannot believe that we got all these problems with the Defiler, and the Soul Grinder out here allowed all this country. Ridiculous. Do you have an exclusive Space Marine segment for us, or is that where we going to have to call Casey on that?
Exclusive Space Marine segment.
There's too many damn data sheets. Stay fanatical, folks.